Ladies and gentlemen, please join me with a warm welcome for D.L. Hughley and EdGordon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Ed.
Get the far chair, dude. First off, don't Ed, you look like a model, man. He should be in front of cashmere sweaters right now. Isn't it weird to walk past chicken while we doing this thing? Ain't it that KFC thing? I started to walk in there like, hey, give me the recipe.
Congratulations as a co-honoree. I said to them when we were looking for somebody for me to interview, I said, man, DL would be great because one of the things that I've always admired about you is your candor and your smart comedy. You and I really have grown up together in this business. Give me a sense of what was it in your life, if anything, that made you what I think you do so brilliantly, and we saw it last night with the KFC joke, the observational comedy that you've always done.
I just think I didn't, when I grew up, I was very different, even to my family. So you learned how to be introspective and to see things in a different way. One thing I've always known about myself is I had a pretty clear line of sight. And so I never knew how it would serve me. I didn't know what it would mean, but I always knew that I saw things clearly, at least from my perspective, and I always knew how to articulate what I was saying. So even though I didn't do good at school, I remember one time, the only good grade I ever got was comprehension. I could understand, at least from my perspective, and was able to at least say what I saw.
Have you always been serious? I know most people would say, have you always been funny? But I know you to be also a very serious person too. Have you always been that way?
Yeah, I just think that I've always been drawn to the things that seemed a little darker, not maudlin, but things that just seemed a little more weighty, heavy, and even comedically. So I think the heavier the subject. I remember I was doing an interview, and Joan Rivers and Robert Klein were there, and they were talking, and they asked, "Is any subject off limits?" And Joan Rivers said no, and he said yes. And then they posed the question, "What about all those people that died in India?" And she said, "I just want to know who got all that jewelry." So and that's the way I've always kind of looked at things. The situation itself is not funny, but there are ironic
aspects of.
Yes.
Yeah. Statistically, you should not be in the place you are.
Sure.
In terms of where you started from,
Sure.
the statistics of just being a black male in the world,
Sure.
all of the things that you've been able to overcome where you started out, where you lived, you didn't finish high school,
right.
But you are here and thriving. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I'd like to say it was me, but it has to be something past me. I think if you read the first part of somebody else's story, it's not ultimately much different than a lot of people, just the ending is. And I think I've always known that something was kind of guiding me and looking out for me. There were things that I could never attribute to myself. So whether you call that God or a higher being, I've always known that there was something that I was that I was connected to, that I should be doing. Even when I was doing wrong, and I do that a lot. I always knew that there was something I was supposed to be doing.
And you know what's interesting, you say that, and I find that out about myself, and I will tell brothers this, there's an internal voice that either you listen to or you don't, right?
Right.
And that's not to say that you don't do wrong,
right.
But that internal voice will tell you, this ain't right.
But if you don't listen to it long enough, you snuff it out.
And that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be the problem with a lot of brothers that are going astray?
I think that that's a problem with humanity. I think that we are addicted to comfort. We want to be comfortable. And I think that anything that is substantive enough for you to grow isn't comfortable. I think as a nation, we take drugs so we don't feel pain, or we drink so we don't feel pain, or we do everything that we can to not focus on what's happening to us. And I think it's not specific to just us, but because we're having a conversation about us, I think that it's one of the things that if we take a real good look at it, it's one of the things we could start to do something about.
Who were influences for you, first on the comedy side, and then I want to get personal influences, but comedically, because when I think about you, I often think about George Carlin.
Yeah, I love
right? And I would suspect he probably would be one of those for you. But who influenced you?
I loved George Carlin. I loved Red Fox. I loved, of course, Richard Pryor. I loved Robert Harris. And I said this last night. Even when I was starting to be a comic, I always wanted to be like Marvin Gaye. Like Marvin Gaye, our children's children will be able to sing his song and know what the world looked like. And I think as an artist, you're a camera. It's not up to me to discern what the pictures mean for people. It's up to me to paint them vividly enough where they get an idea of what it is for them.
What about the idea of the persona that you give to the public and who you are? I saw a snippet of what Chris did with you guys, and it was you and the surviving members of the Kings, and you guys were talking about Bernie.
Right.
And you know, I got to know Bernie, obviously not as well as you guys, but you talked about him being a loner to a great degree. And as strange as it is, there are many of us who are in this business that is a very public business.
Right.
But we find ourselves to be very private. I've got a close-knit group of friends. Right. But in a real sense, I'm still very much a loner.
Right.
What about you?
You know, here's the funny thing, and people used to always chastise me that, well, how come you don't go anywhere? And how come, well, now I ain't in none of them puffy papers, right? I ain't never been done them parties, right? You ain't gotta, like, being alone, I'll never tell on myself. But I've never had to be around, like I never had to do those things. Not to knock anybody that did, but I remember even when I was a kid, I would, you know, you get nervous and things. I would listen to the sound of my own voice. It was the sound of my own voice that when I read a book, I'm the hero and the villain. So I'm very comfortable hearing myself in times of trouble or joy. And so I don't necessarily, and I have great friends, but I like being with me.
Yeah.
I listen to what I got to say.
Yeah.
If I'm talking too fast, I slow down and hear me. I'm gonna hear what I got to say.
But you know, that's a funny line, but that's a reality of, there are a lot of people that don't like themselves at the end of the day, and it's very difficult to be with you.
Right. And there are times when you don't like yourself. Yeah. Like there have been periods where I couldn't look in the mirror for years because of the things I've done. Yeah. So that's not a constant thing. But what I know for sure is, you know, when people talk about this happiness or satisfaction, that is a vacation spot, not a residence. Mm-hmm. You don't live in a constant state of happiness. Now, you can be satiated, but I think when you realize you have three kinds of days, right? You have really great days, and there ain't gonna be that many of them. Really hard days, and there gonna be a lot of them. And days you don't even remember. So when I know I'm having a great day, I take it for all it's worth. When I'm having a bad day, I know I'm gonna ride it out. And then there are gonna be a whole lot of days I don't remember. But I think if you have 15 great days in your life, you've had a pretty full life. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Give me a sense of what the business has been for you. People don't often understand, you know, they see the front side of it, right? And I include broadcast journalism in entertainment, because it very much is performative, it very much is all of that, right?
Well, I don't know that broadcasting has the esteem that it once did because of the way
it does not, let's be clear.
But not because, it's because of the way it's applied.
Yep.
It's like nothing is what it was because everything's a la carte. I can get everything I want when I want it. My business, your business, everything, every part of our, you know, what we do for a living is based on the public's consumption of it. And so there are certain things you go to you for. There are certain things but it's all, most things we do are for our own personal edification. Mm-hmm. And so as a journalist, the people who you work with or who you decide to collaborate with are going to want a certain affect from you. Mm-hmm. And because they, just like this, we're not gonna have this conversation in front of people that aren't like-minded. Mm-hmm. And it's what I've tried to do as an artist is to be what I am. You know, I'm a manufacturer, and whatever retail outlets take me is what I have to live with.
What would people be surprised to know about you personally? Like, everybody thinks I'm very serious, I'm not.
I know that, Ed.
I know you know it, but most people don't. And I was 2 votes away from class clown in high school. I mean, seriously, I'm not at all the dude I play on TV.
Right.
What would surprise people about you?
You know, when I was a kid, I used to want to be a preacher. I used to like read the Bible, and I would give sermons, and people would. And after a while, I saw such an abject cruelty, like the way, like I remember my sister got pregnant at 13, and the way that they treated her under the auspices of Christianity, which is all about love and forgiveness. And I remember she was sitting crying, and I sat next to her, and I said, oh, I better not let her touch me because God will get mad at me. And at that moment I knew, I said, well, if something makes me feel that way, I don't ever want to be connected to something. When you can't touch somebody at their lowest, even a child at their lowest, it changed the way I saw things. And so even there are aspects elementally that I use, because to me, the stage is just the same thing. It's a proscenium. It's me giving my expression of what I...
Yeah, I was going to say in a way you are preaching though, right?
Yeah.
The idea of being a public figure brings to light things that sometimes you don't necessarily want to share with the world, particularly when they reach the level of fame that you have attained, right? I can't even imagine. I mean, I've talked to many of them. You know, when you become a Beyonce or, you know, Michael Jackson or what have you, that's a whole nother level of, you know, what you have to deal with. But give me a sense of what you don't like about that aspect beyond the obvious. It's obvious you want your personal life, but what is the better way of phrasing it? What's the most difficult aspect of that for you?
Is what it does to the people around me.
Yeah.
Like, not me. You know, I've shared things that have hurt people around me in a deep way, under the auspices of trying not to listen, I do what I do, I live out loud. And I don't want to ever be afraid of someone saying something to me that I haven't said myself. You know what I mean? Like I've had people say, well, I'll tell. Nigga, I'll tell right now.
Right. It takes the power away.
Like even with my wife, do you really want to know?
Right.
I'm not, okay, now we can do it, but do you really want to know? But that's always been my perspective. And I think that can hurt other people. Yeah. Like I've said things that people have gotten hold of and it's hurt the people around me. Never me. So I really don't have a regret in terms of that. And I feel bad for them because I'm gonna say it anyway, but I feel bad that it hurts them.
What do you find about this kind of public bickering that celebrities do now? You have engaged in that at a time.
Of course.
Why do you think that is where it is? Is it simply social media, and do we need to reevaluate that?
No. I mean, if I said, I'm not generally a petty person. That I don't truck in that, but I'm not afraid to have a conversation with you. If I believe something, I'm going to say it. Whether people believe this or not, I love my people. I love them. And I love them more the older I get because I know I'm in the back nine. And I want things to be better for them. And anybody who wants things to be better for my people, you know, we can meet in the middle. But if I sense that you're grifting or trying to do harm or I don't understand it, I'm going to say something to you. Maybe we can get it. But there are people that I've had that conversation with, you know, that I've come to have an understanding with, that I really am sorry that it could be Vice President Harris, it could be Wendy Williams, it could be, there are people that I've had, John Levin, there are people that I've had disagreements with, and once I talked to them, it was a lot better. Because I believe it came from a place, the same place, maybe different ways of getting.
Could you have not done that from the start privately?
No. No. I wish, you know, I don't want to have these kinds of things, but I think sometimes they just happen, and I'll just do the best I can when they come up.
You've had an extraordinary career, and before I jump to that, I say that to preface this question. The idea of what Hollywood is, you know, we're hearing so much based on the salacious tales of P. Diddy, Puffy,
Right.
Sean, whatever you
Right,
want to
right.
call him. How much have you looked at the underbelly of Hollywood? I'm not talking about him specifically,
Right.
but the ugliness of that business, because there is a extra layer of ugliness. Every business is ugly,
Sure.
in my opinion.
Sure.
There's an extra layer
Right.
in show business. How have you dealt with that? How do you see it?
Well, I'm in a business where people come to pretend like they're somebody else, right? And enough pretending, you start to believe it. But the thing is, I grew up in Los Angeles, so I didn't come to a place, but I watch people come to a place to be a thing, and it is the access to things that I think ruins people's perspective, the aspect. You can do whatever, literally, if you look at all the people, like they got Puffy, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, they arrested the 90s. Literally, the 90s. Because all of those men were raised and looked at other men. Like when we grew up, we watched a soap opera where a man raped a woman and then married her. Or you watch cartoons where somebody could a cartoon where Pepe Le Pew, he was a stalker. You know what I'm saying? Where men could just do whatever they wanted. And women were taken, everybody liked it. And so those men, that was the last line of men before they started to be some level of accountability. They always did the same things. The way we registered it became different. And it never appealed. Like, I'm not saying I haven't done things, but that kind of thing never appealed to me. It was just like kind of base for me.
How much of that goes to who you keep around? I met your kids,
Right.
know your wife,
Right.
Your inner circle.
You met my girlfriend, all that. No,
Look, I need some plausible deniability. No, I have not. No, I have not.
Oh, Ed. No, he hasn't. No, I'm just kidding.
You keep your fellas around you
Right.
who've been with you for
sure.
years, who I've gotten to know.
For sure.
How much of that is important? Because I think as you all climb, or those of you who are particularly middle managers and on the way, there is a sense of keeping your wits about you and keeping reality.
Right.
How much of that has grounded you?
I don't like them, but they won't stop coming around. No, we are together more than I'm with my family. Mm-hmm. I remember if something happens to me, I know who will be with me. Mm-hmm. It is an amazing life to know that you got somebody with you who's with it for real. Mm-hmm. Good times, bad times. And so those people are far, just like great days, great friends are like that too. So I have people who, I remember one of the cats who's with me is Mexican. And so in LA, there was a lot of tension between blacks and Mexican. I've never looked at it that way. He's my brother, just like Gene is my brother, just like Lou is they're my dudes. And we work together and we hold each other accountable. Like, even if they gonna do something that they know I ain't with, they don't do it around me. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There are certain standards a man has to have for another man. Like, you can't beat on no woman, you gotta take care, like there's certain things that you, like when I was a young man, I couldn't wait to be a man, because my father, all he had to do was take care of the house, make sure he got home before the sun came up, and not let the family's business get on the street. It's different for me now, but the way that they hold me accountable and the way that they are, they have seen me at my best and my worst, mm-hmm. and they know me and I know them, and there is a kinship that we've developed over many years that I respect and need, and I'm glad I have people like that.
Talk to this group about grinding, mm-hmm. because I tell people I've yet to meet someone who is supremely successful in any avenue, sports, mm-hmm. entertainment, business, that for any extended period of time, you can hit a mark
Sure.
without grinding.
Sure.
You're not going to stay there,
No.
and it will not be longevity
Mm-hmm.
for you
Right.
if you don't grind. Talk to me about the grind. And did you get that from your parents, your dad? Where did that come from?
My father, what I heard of my father wasn't money and it wasn't property. It was a work ethic. I got work clothes. my old man, I've never met a man the likes of my father, ever, one time. Now he didn't know that, obviously, he's gone now. But I never met a man like him. And we don't do the same things, I didn't have the same endeavor, but I do, like I'll leave here and go right to do the radio, and then I'll get on a plane, and then I'll go to Dallas, then I'll do the radio again, do another gig. I work every day, and the one thing that I would do differently, grinding doesn't mean grind yourself down to the point that you're not viable. And that is the mistake a lot of people make. It is, you know, you can get on a treadmill and run, but that don't mean you're going nowhere.
Right.
And I think there are times in this business, and this is the one thing I would say about a lot of these young brothers out here that I really admire, is that they know when they're tired. They know how to say uncle. We don't.
Right. Right. Our generation did not.
Still, we pretend like you cannot pour from the empty cup, and I think a lot of times we do it.
What advice would you give to those in that same vein? You know, coming up, there was this sense of everything for the company, you do what's needed. There was a homogenizing yourself to fit in. This group, this young group does not do that in the same way. What's the best advice you would give to them? Not work, because as you said, it's a different line, but for living.
Yeah. I wish I knew how to, I can honestly say, I don't know that I have lived in a way that is conducive to someone following. I haven't. I've worked harder than I should. I haven't spent the time that I needed to. So I would say this, if I had it to do all over again, and obviously I don't, I would take time out to understand what makes me tick outside of this thing. Like, I know I'm a father, I know I'm a husband, I know I'm a comedian, I know all those things, but what am I outside of those things? So it's a level of self-identification I think I'm void of, and I would never want that for anybody else, because now I am where I have to be. I built this place and this thing that I'll have to be, and I accept it willingly, but I would never want just that aspect for a lot of these young men.
What have you done joke-wise? You know, you, as many comedians do, look at the personal and spin it into a yarn of a joke. I've met your son on many occasions. He has Asperger's, for those that don't know. But you talk about that. You have joked about that. You have less often joked about your wife at times, and even less about your daughter, so they got you in line. But do you talk to them first before you say anything, or do you just go with it and live with after?
I'm not going to ask permission to give you my perspective of our relationship. You can do it too, but ain't nobody going to listen to you, but I'm just saying. I don't ask you permission to share the aspects of the relationship from my perspective. Why would I? This is the gig. Go home and cry in a pile of money. Like, what are you gonna what's going on? But they know one thing for sure. They know I love them, and they know, and I know they love me, and they know who I am. Like, there are things you can say about me that people know that I did, and my family will go, he probably did that. And there are things that.
And you have talked about. Sure. You talked about having an affair early on, and
not just. Come on.
Stay with me, man. Stay with me.
Well, I don't want people to get the wrong impression.
Was that something you wrestled with? Because that's not just in a joking situation from the stage. You literally, in an interview, talked about it.
And several. I didn't feel like it was wrong. I didn't. I think that and this was my thought process. I think that I didn't think it was wrong. But and I don't know that I do now. What I do know is wrong is constantly hurting somebody. I didn't like the way it made them feel. I felt great, but I didn't like the way what it did to them. I didn't like how it hurt them. But I had a ball, but I didn't like the way. And I just got too tired to do it. Like, I'm just like, just tell me about it on the phone. I can't get in the car and drive over there and take a shower and come on. I'm exhausted just talking about it.
Do you have a highlight? You know, I said last night, it hasn't been until the last couple of years that I have allowed myself to accept what people give to me in relation to my career.
Sure.
You know, I was like, oh, yeah.
You know, like now, like,
Yeah,
like I feel.
exactly. What about for you? Have you been able to accept your place when people call you legend or talk about, you know, you in those superlative terms?
Well, that doesn't, you know, I can say this. Sometimes I look around and I see the way that, some people interact with me, and it's interesting to me. But I don't know that I ever have. It just obviously it's one of those things I talked about earlier, where it just, you know, it's a thing that I need to accept that I don't necessarily know how. So.
But you do realize, and that's what I mean. I finally realized when I looked at the string of things I was able to do, given the opportunity to do, I could see it. That was a lot, right? So you were able to do that much.
No, I don't think so.
I don't say you sit around in the basement talking about I'm the shit.
You know.
You know.
No, I do that, but I know. I'm always, whenever I see somebody, like they'll put a retrospective together and I'll forget I did it.
Yes. Because fans often know more about you than, or remember more than
Like
you do.
When you showed the DNC, like that was a couple of months ago, and I went, oh, I did do that.
Yeah.
Because it's like on to the next thing, which is the thing I was just talking about. You have to mark things in your life that are important, even if they're just things that give you an indicator of how things are going.
Yeah.
But no,
like the Dancing with the Stars. Did
that
you
was
forget
horrible.
about that?
I hated that. I got the lowest scores in the history of that. But I only did it because I hate dancing and I was afraid to. So I
challenge.
I got to, and I ain't doing that no more. You know how people go, no, I'm gonna do the things I'm afraid of. Fuck that. I'm gonna stay in the pocket, baby. I'm not.
Are you one of those people that, I'm not. You know, say if you had anything to do over again in life, would you do something different? And there are people who go, oh no, it's what made me who I am today. I'm like, no, I would do a lot of shit differently.
Yeah.
Where are you on that?
I would, like I said, alluded to it, I would take time to mark some of the things that should be substantive, important. I think that there are phases that everybody goes through, but I know that they say that when a man gets older, there are places in his brain that open up that are more conducive to compassion and empathy. Everything makes me feel like I feel things deeper than I ever did before.
I agree.
Like I can see somebody on the street, it does things to me, and I think it's my grandchildren. Like I never knew that I could love children as much. Like I love my grandchildren so much. Damn my kids, I don't really have to hear from them anymore. Like I'll call my daughter, hey daddy. No, let me speak to the kids. You had your chance, you know what I'm saying? But I feel things in a way, like even, Tuesday, I wasn't voting for me. I'm not gonna ever get an abortion. I'm not gonna have immigration. I don't have children that need to go to public school. So I was voting for a thing, an idea, not a perfection, not a panacea, but for an idea that I hope made things better for the people I love. And so I am disappointed, not for me. I'm disappointed in myself that maybe I hadn't articulated that well enough to be more, have more of an impact.
I'm going to bring Butch up in just a second. I'm going to ask you one other question, and I'm going to head out to the audience. What I would ask you guys to do, if you have a question, come over to me. I'll be kind of floating around, but I would ask if you're in the back or in a far corner to come over to me. And I will tell you this, we won't get to everybody's question. If you see the line is 7 or 8 deep, you know, just sit till it lessens a bit, or you'll stand there and I won't get to you and you'll just be standing, so, you know.
I don't even know what that was all about.
You'll see, just follow along, follow the dots.
Okay.
Let me ask you this though, is there one singular, if you could pick a moment that you said, this is the highlight for me so far in my career, is there a particular moment, or was it King's, was it a sitcom, a particular stand-up, what would it be?
I would say it's a constant thing. The fact that I get to do what I love every week. The fact that people still come to see me, they still listen to me on the radio.
And isn't that the blessing? I tell people all the time, You know, I was not a stitch of gray when I started, but I have not stopped because I still love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People want to be hot, which is great, but be warm for a long time.
Yeah, man, much better.
It's better to be warm for a long time, and to be relevant and have a conversation where people know who you are. Somebody come up to you, my mother loved you, and you'll see them at the show together. That's the best you can hope for, I think.
D.L. Hughley. Let me bring, we're going to bring Butch Graves back to the stage, and then we're going to start this conversation about black men. D.L., give me a sense of...
Stairs over there.
I'm going to jump.
Now I'm sitting on this big-ass yellow couch by myself.
D.L., give me a sense of what you did by means of apologizing to Kamala Harris for some of the things that you said, and then moving forward with that as I make my way out.
Well, I obviously said a lot of things that I'd never researched, and this is the funny thing, research isn't finding things that edify your perspective. Research means challenging your perspective to see if it stands the test of reality. And I didn't do that, and so I would see a lot of the things that I said on social media, and like even now, people will throw stuff back up that I said, and I knew that it was important that I not only correct the record, but apologize to her. But the other thing is that once you've done something like that, then people question your motives for it. So there's no way to undo what you do, do to people. So I would caution you to just be judicious. I did it, I was sorry about it, and what makes me sad is that I wonder what part I played in people not buying into it. So that makes me sad that I have played a part.
Yeah, and this is not a Democratic or Republican either or conversation. It's really a question of, I feel that they were trying to find a way to marginalize black men.
They were.
Into a narrative that said, you only do X. And that made no sense, right? And then was saying so that black men were not important to this campaign, or not important to we have to focus on black women rather than black men. And the challenge with that is that if both parties are saying the same thing, right, then it's not really reaching out, and the assumption has been, as you and I have had this conversation, that the Democratic Party is assuming that we're with them without their necessarily, and we're not holding it accountable to something. And so I think that part of it is part of what was the attraction for those, and then this is not, I'm not saying people should have voted for Trump or not voted for Trump or should have voted for Kamala, is that we need to hold both parties accountable towards what are you going to do specifically for us, in the same way other groups hold their parties responsible. And I think both parties have been irresponsible towards outlining specific policies or specific things that are going to recognize our value and also to show that there's a demonstration of an investment into us.
D.L., what do we need to do to, from this point forward, become a stronger collective as black men?
To have a specificity in our asks. It was the first time that, there are a couple of things that I saw for the first time. It is the first time I think a party outlined what it is, asked what it is that this group as a voting bloc needed. And it was the first time that we came up with prescriptions, or potential prescriptions. The one thing that we keep alluding to, and we've had this conversation even here, the success that black women have had politically, even from a corporate perspective, is that they show up, win or lose, and they're consistent, and they have a specificity in their asks that we haven't always had. This is the first time I've ever seen groups of black men not just saying, give us something, but telling you what it is you can do. There is this example, I'll tell you this. When black women are so powerful that the reason that Kamala Harris got the nomination because they were afraid not to give it to her. How much power do you have when you say, if you don't do this, you could lose something? They have a black Supreme Court justice, they have They had a black vice president. The black women are so powerful that I remember, Brittany Griner was in a Russian prison, and they got her out before they got a Marine out. They got a woman from the WNBA out, and they did that because black women demanded that is a level of power. And it's them showing up consistently and having a specificity in the ads, which I think the one great thing that came out of this is us having conversations about what we need as a collective. Obviously, we're not a monolith, but what is it that black men want and need? Even this right here, I can't tell you how much I didn't know it existed. I think that this has the potential to be ground changing, but if people don't know about it, then I think it's like a great product that nobody hears about. I think that things like this, conversations about having the specificity of what we need and insistence on that we get those things are invaluable. And you should be proud of having something that leads that conversation, opens the door to that conversation.
We're going to ask those of you who have questions, because they want to get this on camera, to make your way up here to me, and then we'll get as many as we can in.
Question. Talked to a lot of brothers the last couple of days, and where we are right now, we're hard to kind of get us to open up. For the panel, what can we do to enrich, build trust? Because even in this room, there's a lot of us in here, but we also have females. Our trust factor is, let me trust you first before I tell you my issue. How do we fix that? Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
How do we open up? We talk about brotherhood, but the question is, how do we become more open with one another?
I think it's simple. You have to have some level of, the bravest thing that anybody could ever do is love somebody. And nobody asked you to do that. You just decide to. And it starts with us deciding to trust one another. The interesting thing about us as a group is, I'll hear people say, well, we always do that to each other. A black person who goes to school with a black person, who has black teachers, the chances of them going on to secondary education and graduating go up exponentially when they have just having a black teacher. Having a black healthcare professional, a doctor or a nurse, it exponentially raises their chances of having a successful outcome from a health perspective. If we can help each other learn and we can help each other live, then that's all you need. We know that if we get sick, we want a black doctor, right? Because they understand us. If I can trust somebody to help me live, I can trust that we can do business together.
Hello, my name is Sagan Silva. I'm from Salesforce, and I also am on the board of a nonprofit that's helping with voter rights and voter enablement and education. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for really bringing in the conversation of creating a space where we can actually process this, because we're on planes coming in, we got here, we're dealing with the reality of what this means. What do you see as the path forward as a PAC, or is it a nonprofit organizations that we're working together to build that voice and actually have that power in the same way we've focused on black enterprises business, but what is the step forward for our voice politically to be aligned to those specific use cases or specific needs that you were talking about?
Can you just repeat the question?
The idea is what can we do to move forward as a collective, as a PAC, some first steps, some tangible things, some marching orders?
And he said something about nonprofit. I didn't hear exactly.
Yeah, I'm on the board of a nonprofit for voter rights and voter education in the communities of color, especially black populations. And a lot of people were hurting. And I'm like, well, the work just started. This wasn't about this election. This is about how we move forward. So I'm asking, how do we move forward through political power of PACs, nonprofit organizations? We have a lot of black men here, but what's the step forward to have that collective power?
Well, I'm going to borrow some of the DL said. It really starts with trust with each other. And I'm fine with people that are in nonprofit or for-profit business, but you need to come to the table seriously. Like, this room inspires me, inspires all of us, because we're sitting in this room with 600 to 700 brothers who are truly, truly leaning in and want to do more, want to be with each other. But you got to be available, you got to make yourself available to be vulnerable. And I know that's tough for us, right? And that's one of the other things that is unique about black women when we see in an event. They allow themselves to be vulnerable. They allow themselves to say, this is something I don't do well. And Well, we need to lean into each other and say, listen, I need some help, right? I'll do the first. I'll lean into this brothers here and say, hey, brothers, you guys are working in these corporations. We need help. Black enterprise needs help to get inside to talk to the right people at your organization. And I need you to help to take us inside to go to talk to the right people, right? So now I'm showing you some vulnerability. And I think that vulnerability is what builds trust, because you can't just say, I'm good. That's what no matter what, it's buildings burning down around you. I'm good. You're not good. So it's okay to say, I need help. And so for nonprofits or others, you need to go in and say, hey man, I need some help. I'm trying to get this thing going. This is what I need to do. This is what be specific. I need to raise X. I need to raise $100,000 to get this done, and I need your assistance. Now you've given me something that rather than just, hey man, I'm good, or I need this. Tell me specifically what you need, and let me try to find a way to help you.
And I will say this, and Butch and I have been on the phone for the last couple of days talking about this. I'm going to pledge to try to come up with you something for next year, because this won't change overnight, but as DL said, I think that this can be the beginning of a very powerful movement of black men. We need something like this, and we could even design around this conference.
Yeah, and I saw yesterday when they were talking about giving somebody a suit, you know.
That suits you.
Yeah.
Right. And the brother's here. I can't see that great. Where's the brother from That Suits You? Where's he at? Right there.
And I think that's very important for us not to address. But you know, have you ever noticed that if you look at pictures of black men, they never smile? They never do. Like, you look at pictures of us over time, everybody you see who's a star, Magic Johnson, what'd they say about him? He had a smile that lit up the room, right?
Right.
He was a killer. He was an athlete. That smile, it isn't that that smile opened doors for him because he knew how to seem warm and approachable. A smile doesn't work where we come from, but you need it outside of where we come from. So you know how to dress for success. You have to know how to be affable and approachable for success too. Like, people don't want that. I've known some of the greatest, and you know what I'm talking about, some of the greatest comics I've ever seen. And people didn't like to work with them because they were not accessible. And I'm not talking about letting somebody run over you, but I'm talking about being able to look like I can come up to you and say something to you and have a conversation with you that doesn't become something else. Not just dressing for success, you have to learn how to look like you're ready to be. The one thing about women in the corporate environment, they know how to adapt to that environment. We have to learn that too.
All right.
My name is Ronald Terrell. I am from McKinney Housing Authority. I'm an FSS coordinator. Basically, that is a family self-sufficiency coordinator that moves individuals from government assistance to self-sufficiency. And something that I've noticed in my time working with those individuals is the lack of wanting to get outside of their community and seeing what is out there for not only just ourselves, but what we can do to kind of promote our own culture and other, other cultures, like the white community, the Mexican community. I know you mentioned earlier how you have your brothers, who is also one of them is Mexican, and how you kind of exemplify black excellence and showing them that, I apologize. My question is, how do you show others outside of our community that we are not only just good within our community, but good to other communities, to be able to be useful, to be leaders, not just in the NBA and stuff like that.
So let me try to condense
synthesize that
to the idea of, and people question whether or not we have to prove our worth to other people. He's saying, how do we show that we're valuable, not just to us, but to the world? Should we have to do that, maybe, is the question?
Whether we should have to or not, we do, right? I wish things that weren't the way they are, but one of the things that I didn't know about this event, and I'm saying it for the first time, you don't know what it means to see this many young, open people. You don't know what it means. It is the only thing that's making, I was so depressed, but coming here lifts my spirits, because I know that no matter what happens around us, I think we have a chance to do some great things. We shouldn't have to prove that we're human. We shouldn't have to prove that we're fathers. We shouldn't have to prove that we're earnest men, that we're trustworthy, but we do. And I think whether the society can't see it till we reflect it in one another. And I think things like this do exactly that.
This, I will tell you all, and I apologize, we only have 6 minutes left, and we've got some other sessions, but I think, Butch, you see that, you know, this can be something that we should move toward. And I think that our ability to give people more than just the idea of, you know, good conversation for 24 hours is something that we should look to next year. And I will pledge, if you know, are inclined to do that, keep in contact with you.
For sure.
There are other people that we can contact.
For sure.
Because I think we can see that this is very much needed. So I'm going to take 2 questions, fellas. I apologize. I told you at the front end. But let's keep this conversation going. And if you have ideas, I would ask you to share them with B in terms of what you think we need to be moving toward, because this can be a catalyst for something I think we all agree that is head shake that we need. All right, 1 and then 2, and then I'll have to close it out. I got you.
Yes, my name is Darryl Stith. I like what you said about the ask, D.L. Hughley. So we have the ask. I've been trying to convince my people, black people, that voting is a power, but we lost our power because we keep voting Democrat all the time without forcing them to give to our ask. So how do we get, you know, black people to get our power back? Because the only way I think we can get our power back is to basically say, hey, if you don't promise this, we will not vote for you. And the Democrats absolutely cannot win without the black vote. That is 100% positive. So how do we convince them to be strong?
We got that. Well, they found out they can't win without it this go round. So what would you do to encourage the idea of changing the narrative? Not for Democrats as much as you suggested, DL. Black women have found out how to kind of swing that power and get what they need. How do we move forward for black men and make it stronger for the black community?
I think we have to understand what kind of, like Mr. Graves pointed it out, we stood alone this time. I think I've never seen a more stark example of us needing each other. But we also need, 12, 15% of the population, we're going to have to need politically people that align with our goals and hopes. But more than anything else, I think you have to decide to participate. Because no matter what happens, it's gonna happen. Like, no matter whether you vote or not, some laws are gonna get passed, bills are gonna get passed, things are gonna change, people are gonna go, judges are gonna get offices, things are gonna go on around you whether you participate or not, and you have to decide how important that is to you.
And Butch, I'm gonna take this last question, and I would love for you to close out with the stark reality, as you've been saying. But as DL said, when we look at the percentage we are, the stark reality is we are starting to move. We've been second in line for a very long time. That isn't, population-wise, any longer the case, and our political clout and power will be waning if we're not careful. So let me get this question in. I'd love for you to close out.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Glamp from Detroit. I'm here with Aflac, so what up, though?
What's up, man?
My question is for DL. I was deeply moved by your ability to articulate the emotional experience that you're having. You said things like, I'm sad, I'm hurt. You hold yourself accountable. What advice would you have for black men? Because I believe our inability to articulate our emotional experience could be detrimental to our families and our communities.
I think that, he talked about this earlier, it takes courage to say what you see. It takes courage to be able to say, and I said the bravest thing that you ever do is to love somebody, and the second bravest thing you ever do is to love yourself. I think we have to have a level, not only can be honest with the people who we love, but we have to be honest with ourselves. This thing, that the way we have been doing things isn't serving us anymore. It's not. And so we can keep trying to do things the way that we used to do them growing up, or you can start involving yourself in things like this. I am not, this is really very touching for me to see I've never seen this before, never. I've been to conclaves, I've never seen this thing where so many people can do, you all can literally change the world. You have to decide to. You can, you really can. You can. And just like that, I'm telling you, looking, the way to hold yourself accountable, that song, Man in the Mirror, is real. When you know what it is you're supposed to be doing, when you know, they did this interesting thing. They, servers all over the country, they let the servers pick their tips. So when they served it, and the tips were always invariably lower than the people would have given them, because they judged themselves. They knew when they got the food on time. They knew whether they'd smile. They knew, and they judged themselves. Now, externally, we are doing exactly that now, holding ourselves accountable and then making it mean something. I'm very proud of you all. I am. I can't tell you what this means to me. I'm very proud.
So, Butch, I would ask you to close us out. I had that same discussion with Charlemagne on Tuesday night. We were at the gathering at Howard, and there are people looking for this. DL, I know that you talk to a lot of young brothers in particular. There are people who are looking for this, and I truly believe we can bring a collective together. So let's work toward that. And then I would ask you, Butch, to kind of close out with that idea of us understanding the moment, right? Sometimes if you don't leap at the moment that is presented to you, you miss it and it ain't coming back around. This is a moment for us, and it's imperative that we understand it on a global and a national level, because our power, to a great degree, just by math, sheer numbers, is waning. So what should we look to?
Well, I'm going to use a few things. One of them came from Cedric the Entertainer, was making a joke. And he was talking about how black men could never be terrorists. And he said, well, why couldn't you be terrorists? He said, well, you got to strap, they were explaining to him, you got to strap the bombs on yourself and do this and what have you, and you're going to be. And he said, well, how does that work? I mean, strap the bomb on myself and do this. No, you're the bomb. And he said, well, that's why black men didn't sign up for it. And what I would say to you is here, I am him. You are him. You are the answer. The answer is in the mirror. And for so long, we have not looked at ourselves as worthy of being that person. Mm-hmm. And you've got to challenge those. My father used to say this all the time. He says, listen, I'm looking for brothers that are willing to walk in harm's way.
Yep.
You can always get a job. The question is, within your corporation, are you willing to walk in harm's way and walk in and say, this is wrong? We need to do more of this. We need to invest in this. Or you're content just to get your paycheck, get your 401k, and get your gold watch after the 30 years. So you have to make that decision as to what makes sense and what is right and what is wrong. Power only respects power, right? We said that yesterday. I'm going to say it again to you today. Power only respects power. That's why we have been made to be marginalized in the Democratic Party, marginalized in the Republican Party, because they don't fear anything about us in regards to having a powerful group that can do that. So, as DL said, I'm extraordinarily proud of this group that's here. But it's not enough to be here. You need to take this from here and go back to your respective communities, go back to your respective companies, and say, we're going to do this, right? And when I say we're going to do this, whatever this is, and we're prepared to commit to say, hey, Ed has brought this up to me before. He said, hey, man, we got to do town hall. We got to go to different cities to get this done. DL has a radio show that's got 10 million people who listen to it every day.
And
And he didn't know about this.
No. And now that I do, look here. Anybody who knows me knows that when I know something, then I'll do something about it. We talked about power, but I think it's the way we assess power. Our numbers, which is by sheer attrition, but Japan is one of the most powerful countries in the world. They're not militarily. It's the way we use power. Educationally, financially, they sit at the table with everybody else. They don't have the guns, they don't have the bombs, but everybody knows how powerful they are. We have to discern what power means to us. We have to understand that it's not just having power for power's sake, it's using it to make it better for the people that look like you. That should not be a bad thing to say out loud. I care about what happens to you. Now, I'm not saying that I'm Mother Teresa. I am saying that moments like what happened Tuesday can be the linchpin, that moment, that inflection point that changes things. Rather than sitting around and assessing what can happen, we can literally decide to do better for our people and for ourselves. We can literally do the things, the ideas of us. Oh, we don't commit suicide. We do it at higher numbers than almost anybody else. We don't. We can do, if we can do harm to ourselves, we can do help to ourselves.
So let's do this, folks. Let's give them both a round of applause. Hang on.
That was my theme music. I gotta go. That was it.
Let me give you the housekeeping. Stay put. We've got another great conversation coming up. Let us all pledge that this will not be a wasted hour, that we really mean what we say. We should really be able to double this room next year. Yeah. We should be able to bring one person with you to come along. Again, I will engage to bring some folk along. This can be the start of what we say is dynamic. So thank you all for being attentive this morning. Stay put. We've got another conversation coming right up. We're going to take a picture of the three of us here, and then we're going to move forward. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.